Hello and welcome to another What's New in SAP HANA 2.0 SPS 08 webinar with our product management team. Today you will learn the latest on SAP HANA 2.0 SPS 08 modeling and development. Zwickel and Volker Saggau will share the latest capabilities supporting SAP HANA modeling and development. Jan, Volker, the stage is yours.
Thanks a lot, Vitaly. I'm sharing my screen, and first of all, welcome everyone to this session. We are happy to have you here and seeing your interest in the news about development in HANA, in SPS 8 on-premise and calculation views in particular, which will be the first part. My name is Jan Zwickel. I'm from the SAP HANA product management team, and I'm accompanied by my colleague, Volker Saggau, who will then later talk or focus on the development aspects of HANA. Now, let me switch to present mode. As I said, the first part will be about calculation view innovations, and then Volker will talk about the development aspects like XSA pertaining to HDI and Business Application Studio, which you can meanwhile also connect to HANA on-premise. So let's focus first on calculation views. For those of you who don't know about that yet, there is a blog. If you are interested in general in news about calculation views, and if you follow this link, then you will get to a site that lists all the new functionalities and features. You will see in focus news in HANA Cloud, because we have a lot of release cycles there. But also if you scroll down, you will find what's new with SPS 8 on-premise. And if you look here, then these links are structured in a way that the one link goes to a blog post. So you see what's new in a short version again, described there. If you take the other link, then you are directed to a project which gives you some overviews of what's new. So here we're in SPS 8. You see then if you go into this project, different topics like here, column-based pruning. And if you go inside and you open the info MD, then you see again some explanation about the new functionality. And you also see here then different artifacts that you can deploy with the project and just play around or follow what is described here to understand better what is new. Now, that was the general statement about whatever release we are talking about. Now let's focus on the release of SPS 8. So let me go to present mode again. And the first thing that I want to talk about today is column-based pruning. And column-based pruning is one new pruning type, in addition to many others that we already have. I don't want to go into all of these in details, but just to remind you, to give you a little bit of context, we have, for example, in union pruning, a way of semantically describing the sources so that depending on your query, only certain data sources are accessed during runtime. So you can, for example, say, this is old data, this is new data, which is coming in the union. And then you say, if the query is for new data, go in this source, otherwise in the other source. And the important point is, by having this semantic knowledge on top, you can easily prune and very early prune. And by this, minimize your resource usage. Now, this is union pruning that's there for a very long time. Now, let's look at one specific new one, and that's the column-based pruning. And here the idea is a little bit different. The idea is that you have one or more particular columns that are in focus for you. So what you basically say with column-based pruning is, I'm only interested in a data source if it's delivering something to my focus columns, so the columns of my interest. If it's not delivering to these focus columns, then it's just pruned away, which is different from the normal pruning or normal union processing. Let me give you here an example. You see here two data sources. You see sales order 2019, 2020. And you see here in this mockup that the sales column is not mapped, which means if I'm now define sales as a focus column here, as it's happened here, and I activate column-based pruning, then it basically says, I'm not interested in this data source because it's not delivering to my focus column. And because of that, I can very early prune that away and just process this part. So this gives you on a one hand side, easy means to reduce your resources if you have something like a focus column, but it also can help you with a semantic meaning, because if you don't use column pruning here, what normally would happen is that you see nulls for it, because the columns like sales orders and product are mapped, which means they would contribute, but sales would be with null values. And by using the column pruning, you would exclude that anyway, and therefore you will also not see null values, which can be semantically intended. So there's two aspects to it, the performance aspect, but also potentially that you want it from a semantic perspective. Now the second part, the second innovation is also about a performance option that's new, and that's about greedy pruning. So greedy pruning is in the context of join pruning. And join pruning basically means there are certain, or happens in the context when you enrich the join with semantic information that allows to skip the join at runtime. That can, for example, happen. Let's make an example that you have a left outer join. And if you say that semantically that every entry of the left part has a matching entry in the right part, then if you request only data from the left part, you don't have to execute the join, because you cannot explode the numbers of records in the left by that. A counter example, if you have a left outer join and you have a match of more than one on the right side, then you have to execute the join, because every item could be appear multiple times after the join, but not before the join. The join would add additional records, and therefore this join in this context has always must always be executed. Now, what I said was that it's about the semantics that you define, and sometimes you perhaps want to have a very radical approach of pruning joins, and this is the greedy pruning option. So if you have a join and you define, or if you activate greedy pruning, then this pruning occurs independent of the semantic information about cardinality. So independent of whether it's 1 to n, or n to 1, or n to m, it will always prune if you only request columns from one side. So this, of course, can have impact on your results, because it violates the semantic specification of the matching, but of course, it can also help you very much to speed up. Let's look at one concrete example, what it means semantically. Let's say you have here an inner join defined, and you see here the join column ID X or ID Y here. And now if you have an inner join and you execute the join, there is only one matching entry, which means afterwards you will have one entry left, the 1. The 2 is not matched, so it's gone away. Now, if you activate greedy pruning, it says if you're only asking for columns from the right side, so you take only measure Y, then the join is skipped, and because of that, there's no reduction of the records. So sometimes also, again, it's a feature about performance, because you don't have to execute the join if it's not necessary. But on the other side, it can also be, again, something that's semantically intended. Because let's say you have this more like dimensional data, then perhaps you don't actually want to have a reduction if you only request columns from this side here. And this is exactly what you would get with greedy pruning, but what you would not get without greedy pruning, because here you would have the typical relational join behavior. The third one is now not about performance, it's more about functionality and harmonization of your modeling, and perhaps also some comfort functionality. It's about user-defined functions. So in a user-defined function, you can use script to define what should happen. And the important point is you return, in this case now, a scalar function. So you return a scalar value. And this scalar value can be used in the calculation flow. So you can use it in filter expressions, you can use it in calculated columns, restricted columns, masked columns, and non-equi joins as well. And what gives it, or what is the benefit? on the one hand side, you have now an option to pre-process input parameters. So for example, if you have a certain way of pre-processing an input, like you know that there are a lot of typos in a string, and you want to correct these typos before you filter on the value in a database, then you can, for example, use a user-defined function that pre-processes the input parameter, removes the typo, and then only uses works with a filter. And by having this in a user-defined function, instead of coding it every time again in expression, might be possible sometimes if it's not a script, but sometimes it's not even possible. But let's say it's possible, then still you have the additional effect that's easier to read later in the expression, and also you can reuse logic in another calculation view. So you don't have to redo the typo correction in every calculation view again, but you can just refer to the user-defined function, which is doing that. So it's on a way reducing the effort and also harmonizing your logic. Then what we also have in store with SPS 8 is the option to improve or help you with your lifecycle management of calculation views. At some point, some of your calculation views might be outdated because of the logic is not what you need anymore, or perhaps you have a better way of doing it, or it's just not needed anymore. Now, the issue is sometimes you just don't know, can you really now remove this calculation view, or will it break something that you're not expecting at the moment? So in the past, what we had was we had a deprecation option, which meant it said this view is deprecated, but in the end, it was only visible to the developer who opened the calculation view. And now this has been improved, or another option has been added, and this additional option is about the option to not just have here deprecated information, but also block queries. So you can decide on two steps. First, you can just show the deprecation information for the developer, and in the second step, if you prefer to have it in two steps, you can then also block the queries. And then if someone runs a query on it, it will be blocked. The message will be shown that you have here in the deprecation node, like use calculation tool, whatever, instead. And the good thing is then, first of all, the end users sees what he or she should do instead. And also the view is still there in the database, so it's pretty easy to activate it again if you realize, oh, it's still needed, and your judgment that it's legacy is actually not correct. And with that, the topics would switch over to development and XSA. But before doing that, I would like to show you also some examples here. So we had talked about the column-based pruning. And so let's look at one example here. So we have here a union. The screen is a little bit small for me now. And what you see here is we have sorry, three data sources. And I mean, what you don't see here, but what you can see if you look at the example, only one data source is filled with data. So the other two are empty. And this is about demonstrating the null value. Because what you see now is I have selected column C as a column-based pruning, as a focus column, which means only sources that provide C are of relevance. Now, this provides column C, but it's empty. This one doesn't provide column C, so it's not interesting for this setting. So let me do a data preview on this behavior now. So you see now it's empty. And if I switch to column-based pruning, you see also that there's only one table in it that's delivering the column C. Now, if I switch here to the properties, sorry, I have to remove the screen sharing part. If I now switch off column-based pruning so that it's not pruned if it's not delivering a column C, so I saved it now. Now I will move it again. Build calculation view. And if I now rerun the statement, you see now here we have the nulls delivered because we don't have column-based pruning activated. And you also see now all three tables are scanned. So this is the performance aspect of it, where you get improvement by, I mean, here you see the negative effect if you don't use column-based pruning. And here you see also the semantic difference where you see null values. Now let's switch over to the next part. Let's look at greedy pruning. So greedy pruning is about, as I said, radically pruning if you don't request a column from a certain certain source. So let's look here. We have here a left outer join, and we have selected greedy pruning for both sides. That means now, if independent of what I have selected here as a cardinality, because of the greedy pruning on both sides, I mean, you could also select right, left, or off of greedy pruning. If I select now only from one side, the other side will be ignored during processing, independent of the cardinality, which would not happen without greedy pruning. So let's do a data preview again. Now for this view. And now let's look at something only from the left side, which would be product and amount. So product and amount. Let's delete this one. And if you now look at the explain plan, you see only one table is scanned and the others are already pruned. Now, to show you the contrast, just I switch greedy pruning off, I save it, and I build it. And I do the same again. And you see now both tables are scanned because greedy pruning takes not place. Now I skipped in this folder structure the deprecated views. Let's have a look at these ones now. So here's the calculation view that's going to be deprecated. And you see now here, I have a deprecation option, deprecated and query is blocked, which means if I try to do a query on it, it will not work. And I get the message, use the other calculation view instead. Now let's just do a data preview, or let me close these screens here so I have a little bit more space. Okay, so now let's do a data preview. And you see it's blocked, and you see use calculation view current CV instead. Okay. I mean, just for a complete demonstration, if you switch it off and permit queries, you have still this information for the developer, but if you run a query, it will succeed. So if I do build, and I do a data preview now, you see the query will succeed. If you consume this in a deprecated view, so sorry, the other way around. I mean, if you have now a calculation view that consumes this deprecated calculation view, then you will see here a warning on the data source. So this data source here is deprecated. You will also see it here so that you get a better understanding of if you use a view that someone has marked as being rather not to be used. Now, the last functionality is the user-defined functions. And here, let's just look at a very simple example. So we have some time for questions still then, where we have a calculation view with let's look at the masking function first. So here it's very simple. It's just taking the left characters, the right characters, and masking something with XXX in between. Where you can now, for example, use this user-defined function is if you go here to the semantics. Now I have a problem to see it on the screen. Oh, here it is. And you go to the masking dialog. Then you see here now, here's the user-defined function, and it's applied to this column. So whatever is in the column will be processed by this masking functionality. Okay, so let's do it just to demonstrate for sake of demonstration. And you see here now we have the masked in. And this you can use in field expressions, in calculated columns, restricted columns. Sometimes you have functions that return two results. For example, here we return location and status. And in this case, it's important that you define what user-defined function you want to use. So if you go here now into the, okay, I have to move that away again, into the filter expression. And you go here for the user-defined functions. Then you see that here you get offered both return values. Once is the status and once the location, and then you can just click to select which user-defined function you want to use here. And with that, I'm finished with the demonstration, and I would switch over either to questions if there are questions, and if there are no questions, then I would hand over to Volker. So, Vitali, do we have questions?
There was only one question about the URL to the blog post that you showed at the very beginning, and I shared this already in the chat. So we're good.
Okay, perfect. Then I hand over to Volker. Volker, the stage is yours. Thanks for your attention.
Thanks very much, Jan. So I'm Volker Saggau, working at Product Management for HANA. I just have to find out where my screen sharing is. A lot of screens I have, so let's go here. We're taking this and starting here, so that should work. So we are looking at three sections here. One is XSA. So what did we change on XSA? The second one is a little bit of improvements in HDI. Some of that is recap, and some of that is already inside the product for quite a while, but not publicly explained. And finally, we will have a little bit of discussion on BAS. So let's jump into this one here. So development with XSA. We did a lot of things for the Node.js guys. We have now also version 22 in that, but you will see with the next slide that we already have done. So that was the very recent one, but we did a lot of upgrades on all kinds of runtime environments here. So we are well in the submachine, that's Java 17 range. We are on the submachines here. So we are out of any legal constraints, and we are very good up for the next 10 years with this route we have taken. Obviously, we will get new versions, but we are on a very good track here. Tom EE versions, that's all upgraded. So, and we keep you also upgraded with the JDBC drivers we have inside the package. We have a runtime page in XSA Cockpit. I will show you in a moment. So you will see what runtimes are currently used. You might even want to upgrade there after you've tested, of course, but that can be done quite easily today. This is a picture of what I'm showing you in a few moments. You see which versions of which runtime environment are how often used. So, and you can even disable certain versions if you want. The backend itself is running now on submachine 17. So we are ourselves also on a quite modern environment. And with this, we have long-term support until 2030 already with this version. So we are very good on that state. Then there are some other things like system information screen, very detailed. You can look at various things. We will go through that in a moment as well. They overall cleaned up the whole XSA cockpit quite dramatically, I would say, and for the better, of course, and it's easier to use. We have a very, very good log reading now as well, and displaying and filtering in a structured manner, exporting. So that's another very good one, which helps you to analyze problems. Filtering, as I just mentioned, lots of things there. Then there are some technical things. So there's a new reverse proxy setup. There is a even upgraded version coming in December. They didn't make it into this version, but helps you to define DNS and other things. So for the technical installations, I think this is very important to have a safe running environment. As I said, if you want to combine that with identity provisioning, we have to wait until December to see that one coming to life. But you might be aware, I hope you are, that the XSA stack has a more frequent change management than the HANA itself. So we are able to deliver that even to the same HANA base version 08 with just the next iteration of XSA. Backup process, restore is simplified. Have a look at that if that's your daily business. Normally not the developer side, but also part of the XSA stack. I hope you enjoy that one. And then there's a lot of configuration stuff for certificates. Again, makes life easier for people who have to administrate your HANA. Hope you enjoy that one. Now we will just look into that before we went to the next environment. So when you log into your environment, we have now not the standard port here, but still fine to go. And you can go a little bit to the web IDE or to the cockpit. I have done that already. So we are ending up in the cockpit here. And we start with the overview screen. So I have a very simplistic environment here. So we have the subcontent we deliver and the production environment where you can have your own instances and applications running. So if we look at the instances we have here, you see that Jan and I are playing here around to do that. So if we go back, home, the next thing we wanted to see was the system information here. So you can see with versions of the HANA are there, with versions of the XSA stack or extended services advanced version you are running here. You can see the ports where we are running, what's all going on, which controllers are running in which versions on which ports, which agents are running, registered URLs. So you see on one view which ports are used by the system. Which spaces do we have? So all very easy to see and to handle. So you can now see Node.js 20. We have 31 environments to that. So we see a little bit more here when we go deeper to that. So you see all the various applications or services which are using this. So that's also making life much, much easier to see where resources are used or where you still have, for example, outage things or whatever. Tenant bases, there's not too much more what we need. I think we are fine with this so far. Let's go on one application. I hope I have something sensible in. So we are going on application runtimes. No, hang on, where are we here? So we want to go here in prod. We want to go on instances. I go to this one. I know this has a problem, but I wanted to show you the log thing. And you can see here now the log, and you can have the severity and other things. And he's still fetching things. And you could now also go and filter and do other things. Yeah, I'm not sure why he's not coming back. Quite a lot of stuff there, I guess. Anyhow, yeah, I've seen that on the screenshots, and I'm sure if we wait a little bit longer, we will get this also here. So leave it there. We will look at the end to that. So second thing we get from here is the web IDE, where we can program. So I have prepared that as well, and I made a little sample here. But let's go through the slides first. So on HDI, we have particularly improved the HDB migration table. And we are now able to do inserts, updates, upserts, deletes, all that within the definition of a migration table, everything which is inside this table. We cannot cross-reference other tables, but this is giving us a fairly flexible method to do things you had not been able to do before. And we have a look at that immediately after the slides. So the other thing we have in is that an HDB migration table can take over an existing table. And that may be created by an HDB table, HDB migration table, or, and that's important, HDB CDS. So we allow and support that an existing table is now taken over by a different design time artifact. And this helps you, particularly if you are interested to go over to HANA Cloud. HANA Cloud does not have HDB CDS, but if you have HDB CDS and you know the SQL syntax of the table, and that's not too difficult, you can then take an HDB table or HDB migration table, take out the HDB CDS and replace that with an HDB table. And then your design time artifact is exchanged. And that also then makes the migration much easier. There's a whole story about all this. And there are tools which are called the HDB migration service and assistance and what we have. But it helps you really to get out of this kind of dead end with HDB CDS because it's not supported in the cloud. But functionality-wise, we can replace with HDB table or HDB migration table. Another thing, smaller things, but they all help to improve the overall performance. So if you have a view, we did in the past drop and create. Today we are doing create or replace. So the object creation is out of that. If you have lots of views, that helps as well. And we did another option, which is also on this platform, is called try-fast migration. We had been extremely conservative with HDB table to do the change management. And in the past, we always did what we call a shadow table. Today, we are trying to alter wherever we can. And you have to really enforce that you want to do a shadow table these days. So that's also changed and will, on large tables, dramatically improve if you're not needed, if you not are required to create a shadow table. We're coming to that in a moment. And what we also did is we support now on-premise a cloud store export for HDI containers. So you can export and import. You can take, if you have the BTP cloud, you can take even the object store, which is within the BTP, export into that your content of your HDI container and import it back to the cloud. So if you want to have import large volumes of data, you can use this method. Before we go to the BAS, we go back to our environments here. And we had been on the migration table. So I've made a little sample here, and I created a person with first name and L name. And I also had a def version. That's also something you can read up if you want to repeat things and start from the scratch always, the dev version will delete all the data which is in the table, but it will allow you from migration tables to go through all stages. So let's try to deploy this. I hope I didn't break anything in my last play around. So let's see. Seems to work. So what I did is I had my person, and if I'm going now to my database side, I go to my SP demo, I go to my table, and I have my person here, and it has 3 columns. So what I also did, just to show that completely, I did what is called a projection view. So I have to rename this to show that to you. So doing that. A projection view is a construct which, come on, it's called projection view on person, which allows you to do all insert, update, delete functions on this view, as well as even defining triggers. But, and that you will see in a moment, you can also change the sequence of columns if you want to keep a particular sequence of columns into your construct. So having this done, I'm doing another deploy here, build. So he's doing that as well. We are going on the other side, and on the view side, sorry, here we have our person. Nothing really spectacular changed. It's just another proxy object to the same functionality. So I'm not doing all the details here from my versioning. I just go to the last version, and let me rename a few things here to let that work properly. So we take away the projection view. We rename version 1, so that's versioning for very poor people here, I have to admit. TXT is always the kind of neutral version of text which is not processed. So, but what we want to have is we want to have this view being processed now, and I will explain you in a moment what's happening here. Okay. Are we there? And this one here has to be renamed. Or it's a little bit tedious, but I hope it pays back. So let's start here. HDB migration table version 4. So what we had is, you remember we had this LNAME thing, and then we have various steps. Just zoom a little bit in where we are going from. So we had version 2, where I add a street, where I added a city to that, and I renamed column person name to last name. I think it's person L name. If I'm right, let me check. Here we are. L name, yeah. So we had to do that. And then we take the person and extend the street from 100 to 200. And then we add also the house number to the street at the end. And in version 4, we are doing now this DML steps. So we want to have the street being shortened. Someone has made it 200, but that was too big. Bringing it down to 150 is not allowed. We do not support this because you might lose data. You have to do a kind of trick to that. So what we are doing is we are renaming our street to street 2. We add a street with 150. We update the person street with left of street 250. So we intentionally truncate 50 characters of the street, but this is now our own risk. And finally, we drop the street too. So we did an update statement here within our migration table, and that helps us to do this changing of my street. And if we deploy that, build, everything has to be saved. So is he done? There. We are through, so we look at our table. If we go on tables, we refresh here to see everything new. And if we go on person, you will see that we have everything now being changed. But the street is at the very end. We might want to have that in an earlier position. So that's now the last trick here. So if we take our projection view, we can bring the street back before the city for whatever reason you want to have that, maybe even the house number. We can do that as well. Control C, Control X, I think is better. Control V, we make a comma here and take the comma off there. So that now creates our projection view. In the sequence, we want to have the columns. Everything else in the behavior of the table is the same. So let's see if we can get that through as well. Yeah, save the stuff. So we can get through all of this. And on the other side, we now have a view here with the right sequence we wanted to have, although, and that's the way HANA is working. When we add a column, the columns always get to the end. And if you really insist on having a certain semantic order of your columns, I mean, with your SQL statements where you qualify all the columns, that should make a difference. But if you have that in tools like, for example, the Calc View Builder, you might want to have all the closely related columns in one location, that you don't have to hover so much left and right or forth and backwards in your list of things. So this little projection view thing is a means in HANA to help you with that one. Questions to that? No? Okay, then we can continue with our BAS environment. So BAS is standing for Business Application Suite as our development environment in BTP, in the HANA Cloud environment. Next generation is already on the forefront. It's called SAP Build, which is, I would say, if I'm loosely talking, BAS on steroids. It's really more powerful than BAS, but it's on the same technological base. So you can use BAS and Build for the work with HANA on-prem, the same notation. So what you can have is you can have BAS working with HANA 2. What you need is a cloud connector. You need 6 so-called destinations, and you have to configure the XSA tooling inside BAS to make that enabled, also to help you with migrations. But then you're good to go. So let's see how that is working. And just let me move this away if I can. Yeah. So if you go and you are already finished here, I can now, when I build a new project, so I can go and have a new project template, making a little bit of space here. And we are going to have a HANA database project. And today we have Monday. So we are starting with Monday, DB, blah, blah. And here you can say HANA platform. And this now makes the IDE to understand that you're working for HANA on premise. So that's the trick behind all this. I'm stopping this right now because I have done that already. I have defined a table here. And I can go now to this tooling, which is source code compatible. So you have everything the same way as you have it in in Web IDE, but this is offering you all the power you have from the cloud version of Visual Studio Code. You can add your own components this if you want. So you can go here and build your and load down your favorite extensions if you want. You can, whatever you want to have additionally to that. You can get all the HANA tools. You can build your own extensions here. You can open the terminal here. You can run your own terminal things. So you can use Geoman. So that's also included here. So you can run various generators which we prepackage, and. So this gives you a whole lot of power, more power you have even for development for HANA on-prem. And at the same time, if you want to migrate, or you are an enterprise with both sides, with on-premise and cloud, you have now one tooling to work with and to operate with. So if I do that here, so I have my table person here. So the way I'm going here is I'm going to my cloud. And he even sees that he's not going to the cloud. He's going to his HRTT and going to the environment which we have on premise. And there we have our person and person ID and name. Let's see if we had that first name. So we can make it a little bit more. We make last name and varchar 200. And add that to, is that all right? I think it looks good. So let's, there a bracket too much? Yes, there's a glitch here. Okay. So let's see if we can deploy that. So he's saving automatically. You don't have to bother about that one. So let's get that out. And let's check on the other side. So we do a refresh here. We get the person out and check on the person again. And there we are. So, and this is running now on my local machine here, on my on-premise machine, although I developed everything within my cloud environment. I can also add that to my HRTT inside my cloud environment. So that's the next step to do, but for the sake of time, I'm not doing that right now. What I want to show you is the other thing. So if we have our environment, so this is my BTP cockpit, there is a section here you might have not seen yet here. So that the cloud environment where my account is, we have a destination. And here you can define for the tunnel, for the secure connection to your on-premise landscape, that we are connecting here to our environment with the port here, and we don't need to S that here, so we don't need S security connection, because we already have the tunnel around this, so there's no need to do a double tunnel, double ciphering encryption thing. That's only performance taking. So we have all this here. So I put some things in, defined that here. And this needs on the on-premise side a running cloud connector where I have logged in. So we have on the same machine as our database, we have a cloud connector installed. And there I have a profile here, which is my name here. And I have a cloud to on-premise. And what I'm doing here is I'm defining, thank you. So we have to log in again. Administrator. No.
And R is missing.
Administrator. And then my favorite password. Then you look for a sub account you have here. So that's my name here. And then you look for cloud to on-premise. And then you have here, so to speak, the counter definitions, which then through the channel of Cloud Connector find to each other. And with this, I can take the BAS environment, the Business Application Suite environment, to work on premise as well. And also, I can use the same channel, by the way, because I also have the HTTP connections here. Sorry, the TCP SQL ports. I can also use that to build up replications or federations, remote views on my HANA cloud to my on-premise, or also the other way around. Both directions are supported. So let's see where we are. So one is remaining here in the tooling world of BAS. We have today 2 migrations, XSC to XSA and XSC to CAP, which is also doing this CDS thing automatically in the background. And there is very soon coming a new one called XSA to CAP. So all these 3 then will allow you to bring your database content from an on-premise environment to the HANA Cloud environment, if you want, just an option. There are also some samples for the old Shine project, which we have migrated. If you want to take a first look, they are publicly available. And with that, I want to stop here. Vitaly, are there more questions?
Thank you, Volker. Yes, so the very last one was indeed regarding the migration. So it is from the same person. Please provide me some documentation on the cloud migration of XSJS from Neo. So is there some documentation link that you could share?
Yeah, so we can add that. I haven't put that in. There is a blog from myself. I have to look up. I don't know how we add that here, but there is a blog there. How to do that? Describe that coarsely, overview, and we have a lot of detailed blogs written and tooling by the engineering team for the XSJS migration. Yes.
Okay, if you can share this link later on with me, I will just add this in the comment section of this video. So please have a look there. And from the same person, for the migration towards the HANA Cloud, which is the preferred or best, XSC to XSA or XSC to CAP?
At the end, the what we internally call the golden path, I don't know what the external name is, but we have a philosophy of best tools or best ways to go things, and one of these elements is CAP, and CAP is the way to go for various reasons. So the XSJS world is not going to run in the cloud at all. So if you want to go to the cloud, there is no support for XSJS. Even this compatible version, asynchronous XSJS, will only be supported on premise, not in the cloud. So if you want to get ultimately to the cloud or run in both worlds, you have to go the next step and convert things to HANA CAP or CAP in general. I know that this is for certain aspects also a rewrite. Unfortunately, these systems are not automatically convertible to things. We do have partners which help you with that. We have tools which are doing a lot of things. In particular, CAP is generating, for example, the OData layer and other things. So if you have the business application studio or the build with the full stack studio, you will see it's getting really easy, and we showed that at TechEd already, and there are a lot of ways to get and also to do the garbage cleaning of the old stuff. Unfortunately, this stack is more than 10-15 years old, and unfortunately it's not compatible. We did a lot of things to keep it long alive, but you have to do something to get it over. My advice would be CAP, because CAP is under the hood generating HTTP table, HTTP migration table, and therefore is rock solid running on HANA.
Perfect. Thank you for extensive answer. And the other one was actually related to SAP HANA Cloud. What is the role of CDS views in SAP data modeling with SAP HANA Cloud?
CDS views as calc views, or what is meant with CDS views?
This is kind of like quite a broad question, I would say. What is the role of CDS views in SAP data modeling with SAP HANA Cloud?
CDS views,
But
I know from the if it's calc views, they are remaining. So that's all the same, and they are existing in both worlds. If
okay.
if it's the ABAP CDS views, they remain in the ABAP world, and they are the means of connecting the data in the ABAP stack to our world. CDS generates views, which are normal SQL views. So I always have a little bit of a problem with this CDS view term. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. So that was the last question. There are no more questions in the chat right now. So I believe we can move to some closing words if there is.
Yeah. So one thing maybe to mention, it's already in the roadmap. So we will have HANA tooling for Visual Studio Code coming early next year. I hope it's coming Q1. That's at least in the moment in the roadmap. And we are looking also for Docker-based solutions in on-premise world, so that you can replace the web IDE with a full functional thing without the need to buy a BAS environment, which is, by the way, not too expensive. But if you do not have any cloud footprint, we understand that you might also want to leverage the modern tools. So we are looking at that, and stay tuned for more coming next year.
Perfect. Thank you, Volker. Thank you, Jan. This concludes the session, and we invite you to join the other sessions from the series of webinars on what's new in SAP HANA 2.0 SPS 08. Have a good day. Cheers.
You
Bye.
too. Have a good day. Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.